Hello, this is the AUS Rugby Scene on 8-9 Rugby and in the guest chair for the debut episode of the new Aussie Focus show from Gainline Analytics, former Wallaby, former Brumbie, Ben Darwin. Hello, mate. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you too. Fantastic to be back at work and away from my kids.
Quick key question on the way in. All the Super Rugby clubs are launching their team of the 30 years. They're all naming their champion 15s. You offered $1 per vote. How much have you had to kick out so far?
Well, no one's contacted me, which tells me a couple of different things. But I'm trying to get maybe one of our programmers to see if he can hack the program. This is actually I have. I don't know if you remember the 2003 World Cup.
Yeah.
Where they had this thing called the Rugby Bar. And they had David Koch and Buddha Handy. And,
in Darling Harbour in Sydney.
Yeah, in Darling Harbour. They said, "Oh, he's going to be the captain of the bar." And I sort of knew Koshi a little bit better than I knew Buddha. So I got a mate of mine to hack Channel 7 and got them to, every time someone voted for Buddha, they voted twice for Koshi. So he ended up winning the whole thing. So maybe I have to do that. Maybe I have to do that with this to get myself across the line, because I got Ben Alexander and Alan Alatar. The good thing is that they put Noriega as a loose head, but not a tight head. And he was actually probably the best, technically one of the best tight heads we ever had. So that's a good advantage.
There you go. You can hear little dogs barking on the end of my street right now. There must be a mailman or something about to arrive. So apologies for that, but this is how the podcast world works. So a quick explainer of how 8-9 Rugby is going to work in 2026. It's the next evolution of the 8-9 combo. Harry's departure means the combo part has made way for a whole host of guest hosts each week rather than permanent co-hosts, and that'll extend to this new show as well, the AUS Rugby Scene. And this is a new weekly show that applies the same 8-9 format and style to a more local focus down this part of the rugby world. And I think there's a bit of an opportunity, because I think it's sort of crying out for more Australian content. So Ben, it's great to have you on the first episode of the new show. We had a couple of chats over the summer after the 8-9 combo wrapped up, and so thank you for the support and the encouragement, and thank you, mate, for helping kick off the Aus Rugby Scene for the new season.
It's a pleasure. It's I'd be really interested to see what we can get out of today, and then what else we could do during the year.
Absolutely. So Here's Cheese is going to continue, and this means I'm on double duties if we're recording 2 episodes a week. I'm going to do Here's Cheese all the time, but I've got one. Have you got one to start us with?
Yeah. So now I got to get my names right here, because I always think of his old man, but Angus Bell, the try he scored on the weekend.
Yes.
Now you, in discussing it earlier, you had a better sense of it, but I think he beat three backs.
Definitely beat fullback and right winger, yes.
Side between 2 defenders, and then it's annoying, because I never got to score a try in pretty much any form of professional rugby, except I think the Rico Cup or something. So it's both humiliating, but it was truly an extraordinary try for a prop to be on score, because most of the time props will score like those type of tries off an intercept, or do you remember the James Slipper one against Ireland in Perth, where he went 40 meters? Some sort of mistake happens where a prop ends up with the ball.
Greg Holmes, you mean, of course.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
How dare I? But this was actually taking on defenders and stepping defenders and scoring, so it was absolutely spectacular. And
he went left foot to beat the fullback, right foot to beat the right winger, and it was footwork that a centre would be proud of. And the fullback, Cameron Winnett, was the same player that Lenny Hitau stood up in a test match last year or the year before. Same thing, stepped in left, stepped right, and he'll just be having nightmares about defending.
Yeah, the good part about this is anyone who misses tackling a prop will never let it down. the rest of their lives.
Very true. Very true. Very true. Mine is a little bit of shameless cross promotion. It's the flood of new subscribers to 89 Rugby on Substack. It is a shameless cross promotion for the new written offshoot that Jeff Parks and I have launched last week. We've already been inundated with new subscribers. But what's really blown us away is the surprising number of readers who have already signed up for the full premium access when that kicks in towards the end of March. So we've just sort of said, site's completely open and free until sort of late March, and which we want everyone to get across. But if you're one of those wonderful people who have said, no, we're happy to start paying up straight away, sincerely, thank you. And if you haven't yet, do go and check out the site, jump on a Substack, search for 89 Rugby. There's a link here in the show notes as well. So please go and do that. The Great Rugby Chats resume in 2026 in just a second, but a quick reminder to subscribe wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening. If you're on YouTube, it's the red button down there in the right corner. And if you're on any of the podcast platforms, then you know what to do. Hit like, hit subscribe, whatever it happens to be, and you won't miss anything of the 89 Rugby this year. So, Ben, Super Rugby Pacific in 2026, it is just over a week away. It's been a very enjoyable summer to disconnect from rugby, but I've had to rapidly get back into the swing of things in the last couple of weeks. I would imagine that's the same for you. When last time we spoke, which is a few weeks ago, you threw a really, really interesting trivia question at me, and I've mentioned in my little Queensland Reds preview on the Substack site that they have the second most experienced squad in Super Rugby Pacific this year. And the team that is the most experienced blew my mind when you told me. And that team is...
So not only is this team the most experienced this year, they've been the most experienced 5 of the last 6 seasons. And that's the Western Force.
It's the Western Force. I did not and would not have picked that. It sort of speaks to how they build their squad, isn't it? Yes, they've got a lot of, talented younger players, but they've always tried to build in a fair bit of ready-made experience. And so, that is the likes of Harry Johnson-Holmes and Ben Donaldson and, those guys heading across the country. It is Nick White going across the country there a couple of years ago. It seems to be the way they operate, isn't it?
I think it is, but it's also a reflection of the limitations they have around, they don't have a local competition that's bringing them, talent straight away. That's something you really have to develop and work hard on. It's very hard putting in any sport professional teams on top of systems that aren't necessarily producing talent. And so, a young player, it's a big jump to go across, and then you're not really going to grab a lot of guys mid-career. So then they get to the end of their career, I want to stay in Australia. Okay, I'll go across to the Force, or I'll go overseas, come back. So, so they have, probably 10, I think, total years. We just use total years as a number. So they have 196 total years of experience in the team, which is, for example, 40 years more than, say, the Brumbies.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Who have a young squad by comparison.
This will be the year too. I think, it happened at the end of last season or will happen early rounds this season. Is the Force will have had more players play for the Force than for the Brumbies.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. I remember.
Yeah.
I remember seeing something about the latest Force cap last year, thinking, "Oh, gee, they're not far off catching the Brumbies." And the comparison that I suppose is Australia and England have been playing Test cricket for the same amount of time. It's nearly nigh on 150 years. It will be 150 years next year. England have used something like 230 more players in the same period of time than Australia have.
And how many of it is 240, 34 more?
More, yes, yeah. England's caps numbers are well in the 700s, and Australia's
that's fundamentally the nature of big systems. They have a lot of players playing county cricket. There's over that period of time, there's generally about 18 county teams. And so in Australia, you think about Alan Border, I think he won like 3 of his first 27 tests or something. Like,
yes.
Sometimes you just gotta keep the same group. Crazy,
Exactly
crazy
right.
thinking.
Well,
Yeah.
and through the early 2000s, like late 90s, early 2000s, there was a period there where Australia only had something like 10 debutants in about 11 years or something. Like it was a really, really crazy spread. Anyway, let's not sidetrack ourselves with cricket. So the force, you say 190 odd years, Queensland are number 2. So what's the gap there?
So there's the force 196, Reds are 183, Hurricanes Blues 181, Crusaders 169, Brumbies 161, Highlanders 165, Drua 136. The Drua's hard though because like what counts as professional rugby? Like that's one of the big sort of questions. And then Waratahs 146, Moana Pacifica 126.
So
and like the correlation between experience and success in sport is much lower than everyone thinks it is.
Yeah, of course. But it's an interesting starting point at the start of a season because you think, all right, who's how squads come together, how much experience is inside. It's like we're not even talking about cohesion and the sort of thing that you guys talk about every day. It's just that experience factor is really interesting. And I think I wrote 3 blokes who've played 50 tests each or 50 games each for 3 different clubs and they've never played together. They still need to learn how to play together, obviously.
Yeah, 100%. And the more you play, the more habits you have, harder to unlearn those habits. I mean, I think, Jamie Roberts at the Waratahs is a good example of that, or Rob Kearney when he went across, it's to the force. You could tell he was finding it really hard to adjust and bring what he wanted to the table. So
it's interesting, isn't it? So this time of year, we're a few weeks out from game one. How much is a coach having to rely on, because there'll be new players coming to a team. There's players have switched teams, there's players have come from overseas and things like that. So how much is the experience factor something that a coach can actively rely on at this time of year?
So it really depends on how your squad is built. And it's something we've noticed quite a bit, is that you've got basically many different types of squads, but you'll have a squad, for example, that has basically been together since the previous year, gets everyone into their preseason in that sort of October-November period, and then stays together till the season starts. And that's basically the perfect scenario.
Yeah.
The imperfect scenario is you get a lot of new imports in that November period, right? And then so you have to then take the experience of those guys that are coming in, not make too many adjustments, get everyone onto the same page. But the real challenge with this that we've found is the late arrival of everyone back from playing test rugby.
Yeah.
And I sort of experienced that for the first time for myself in 2002, when I'd gone 3 or 4 seasons continuously of October, November, December, January pre-seasons, which was Canberra. Awesome. Right. But then,
I don't think that'd be great in Perth, for the record.
Oh yeah, I did one in Perth as a coach, but yeah. So that was always a challenge. But then it was like I came back with the Wallabies, and it was just a sprint, absolute sprint to get everything ready. And you generally suck during your trials. Like we've seen that. So the Reds have the most guys who come back, and their trial wasn't great against the Tars.
No.
And the Brumbies was the next most, and they played the Force, who've kind of had that lengthy period of time together. And some Wallabies come back as well, but not as many. So that was difficult for them, those trials.
Yeah, it's been interesting to. I find it difficult to get excited about trials. It's when there's 27 and 28 and 30 players sometimes filtering through a game, and it's hard to know how much, if any, worth to put into it, anything like that. Queensland right now, having gone 0-2, they'll be putting no value in pre-season trials at all. Perth the Force on the other hand, they're 2 from 2, and they'll be trying to claim all sorts of momentum going into playing the Brumbies again in round 1 next week.
So I was at Suntory in Japan, and we were always notorious for being terrible at our trial matches. There was some similar dynamics going on, but in this season we were losing all our trials, and I'm like, this is going to be terrible. And the players said to me, no, you watch what happens round 1. The boys will turn on, and they then went through the entire season undefeated.
Yeah,
Did not lose a game the entire year. So
yeah,
it depends on when the band comes back together, so to speak. So I think you can see in those trials, some clubs were going, we've got to get as many games into the starting team as we can before the season starts so we can start fast.
Yeah.
Or teams going, we're just going to work on a few things with the other guys because they're not going to get any time this year. And then when the real band comes back together, away we go. And every team's going to be different in how that's constructed. But one thing we did notice was, for example, was when teams do have a lot of test players away, they can be a little bit slow starting. So if you remember the Crusaders losing to the Rebels a couple of years ago, and basically by about round 5, they kind of start to warm up and away they go. So it's the law of diminishing return. So the first game is the hardest, and then they sort of work their way back in. But if you have a lot of guys away, you'll tend to start slow, and it's hard because it's a short comp. It's not like the NRL, the AFL. You can't sort of work yourself into it. You've got to get going as quickly as you possibly can. And then so it comes down a lot to the draw. Right?
Yes. Well, we'll come back to the draw in a minute because you've told me something that's really interesting about that. The one thing I was going to mention about returning Wallabies is that for what we saw last year, and this is where I'm consulting a spreadsheet of my own. What we saw last year for the first time in a long time is that we actually saw some degree of parity between the two teams. So, for example, the spring tour squad, by the end of it, finished with 39 players. There was 2 overseas players in that, but the split was Queensland had 13, and then the Brumbies, Force, and Waratahs had 8 each. And then you go back to the squad before that, and it's sort of 9, 8, 11, 8. Before that, it's 9, 8, 11, 7. So, like every team throughout 2025 roughly had a similar number of Wallabies there. And as I say, that's parity amongst the Australian sides. I don't know if we've ever seen it quite like that. So, all the 4 Australian teams are going to be in a similar sort of boat now because the Wallabies have all come back on a similar sort of time frame. So the experience that was left behind to start pre-season and bring the young blokes through is probably going to be more important, I'd have thought, than just the number.
There's an interesting dynamic at play. You think about Checker going to the Wallabies and took a lot of TARs with him, right? And that core, bias is extremely helpful statistically towards a certain province. So like we talk about this, one of the 3 ways to win a World Cup, right?
Yeah.
So,
yes.
And the 99 of the Reds, obviously. So that bias is extremely helpful in terms of national performance, but parity is helpful in terms of the province's performance, right?
Yes.
Now, the interesting thing is who's the coach? Is he doesn't have a bias.
True.
Right? We have a national coach who doesn't have a New South Wales bias or a Brumbies bias or whatever it might be. I remember when Rod first came in, he brought in a whole bunch of Brumbies, which probably annoyed all the Queenslanders for a while. Sort of 97 tour.
Yeah.
The Jacker Brumbies sort of got imported into the team, and he sort of same thing later on. But it's So what the last 2 national coaches have not been. Sorry, there was Eddie for us 9 months, but let's put that to one side. But the last 3 national coaches
have had no ties.
And that has, I think, even things up. And you're 100% right. There's a real balance between all the ties.
And so it will be interesting to see how that parity breakup changes as Les Kiss comes in. And that's not a suggestion that he's going to go Queensland heavy, but he'll have his own natural thoughts. And you even want, we could.
Well, he's also coached the Tars, but no one left there.
Yeah. No, true. So I mentioned the draw. And one of the points that you said to me was we were getting ready to have this chat is you said that the draw is not exactly even. And it's a 16 round draw. There's 11 teams. So the draw is not going to be even. You're going to play some teams twice. You're going to play other teams once, but you've sort of gone a bit deeper into this, haven't you?
Yeah. So I think, even if you have a draw that is an even round robin for everyone, so everyone plays everyone, that still doesn't mean it's even.
No, right? because of who you play home and away is what you mean there, isn't it?
Yes, but also when you play them.
Right. Okay.
Right. So, for example, this year you want to get the Crusaders and the Reds early. because of them having so many players, or Chiefs early because of having so many players in the national team that come back late, right? Because their form's not great at the start of the year.
Yeah.
But there's also, like I said, so there's like a number of different elements of this, and it's such a short season, it's going to be affected by it. But so let's begin with this. In this competition, I'll use the evil word again, cohesion, right? There is 6 haves and 5 have-nots.
Right.
And the 6 halves are Crusaders, Blues, Hurricanes, Reds, Brumbies, Chiefs.
Right.
They're the high cohesion teams.
Yep.
Right. Not good players, not good coaches.
Just high cohesion.
Yeah. Right. And who's going to win each game? I cannot tell you because I don't know what the lineups are, and they're always affected dramatically by the lineups. The great example: Waratahs make 6 changes, Crusaders put 90 on them or whatever in a game. Like you could. Who's going to be in the teams? I can't tell you, and teams will change and improve as the season goes. But these are the general ideas. So the top 6 last year for cohesion was the top 6 in the finals last year.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and generally 1 or 2 will win it. But we're not going to go into that. We're just going to say there's 6 good ones and then 5 different ones. So the 5 that are challenges on the cohesion perspective is Highlanders, Drua, Waratahs, Force, Moana.
And they are the teams that have obviously had the most turnover.
Yeah.
Through the off season.
They have not.
Yeah.
So, one of the things is going to be is if you say, okay, and we're not going to say good or bad, but let's say have and have nots, is if you play a team that is on the same level as you in terms of quality, okay? So let's say you're an 8 out of 10 and they're an 8 out of 10, and you play away from home, you'll generally lose that game.
Yeah.
Okay? Because what we found is in order to play a team away from home, and away from home is really interesting, but it a little bit affects the referee and affects the players.
Yeah.
You have to basically be 20% better than your opposition from a cohesion perspective in order to beat them. Okay?
And Super Rugby historically has always been weighted very much in front of the home team. Like some years it's been 80% home team wins. I think the last few years it's actually evened up a little bit, but it has always been a home team heavy competition because of the travel
100%.
factors.
And it's the distances, and I think we've talked about it before that they found in the EPL for every 10,000 more people in the crowd that are biased towards the home team, the referee gives like 1 more penalty.
Yeah.
So when COVID happened, away bias basically disappeared in all comp. It was cool because there was no crowd.
Yeah, of course.
Right? So if we say we say you have to be a lot better basically to beat teams away from home, and of course we're no longer traveling to South Africa anymore, so therefore it's not like completely hostile environment of 40,000 Afrikaners screaming for your blood, when you get out of the stadium. So, and intimidating different people. The most biased competition in the world, by the way, is the French. Towards the home team.
Of course.
They've also started to play into that a bit by not always selecting the best team to play away. You put your best team all the time. Anyway, so if you play the good teams away from home, you're probably going to lose that game. Okay.
Yeah.
But you'll have the easy teams at home, then you'll win that game generally. Okay. Obviously, because you're better than them already. And then, right. If you swap that over, right? You swap that over and you play those
top teams at home. Yeah.
Top teams at home is you can, sorry, I apologize. Now I'm getting myself confused. If you play the top teams, at home, you'll beat those guys.
Yes.
And you play the easy teams away, you can also beat those guys. That's right.
Yes.
So if you play the top teams away, it works against you. If you play the top teams at home, it works for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, right. And so,
it
does.
I don't think it's necessarily thought of in the draw.
No.
So the Brumbies should beat the Crusaders at home. They should lose to the Crusaders away. If they play the Drua at home, they beat them. If they play the Drua away, they don't always, but they should beat them in those circumstances. So what I did is I started to, sorry.
And also for the Brumbies, they've got the draw and they've gone, right, we've got the Crusaders in Christchurch, but also we've got the Crusaders in Christchurch in round 2, having played the Force in Perth in round 1. And I suspect that they'll probably go from Christchurch, from Perth straight to New Zealand. So that's probably the hardest trip in Super Rugby.
Yeah, I remember we did Bulls and Crusaders 2 weeks in a row once, and that was fun.
Yeah.
It was a distance, but yeah, that across a long way. So what I did is I then basically lined up all these teams against each other using these scenarios. And what it meant was the Brumbies basically have 10.5 games they should win given that scenario.
Right.
Whereas opposed to the Blues have 8.5.
Right.
Games they should win. And that's basically, but still counting the Blues and the Brumbies as just as strong as each other.
Yes.
So over most teams, the Brumbies have a 1 to 2 game advantage in terms of how that plays out. And it was the same last year. Now, it's nowhere near as bad as it was when they were in the pools, when we had the South African pools, the Australian pools, in the prior sort of incarnations. The level of ridiculousness there in terms of the bias was unconscionable. It wasn't good. Yeah, it was off the charts. So this is that part. And then the second part is what you want to do is if you can play easy teams at the start of the season, and then you want to play the hard teams at the back end of the season, so you can build up the level of kind of understanding that you have with everybody.
Yeah.
Right. Which makes it so that you can start to win games towards the back end. And interestingly, a really big example is the Big Bash in cricket, actually. There's different teams. There's what we call single and split teams. The Melbourne teams, the Sydney teams really struggle to get going because they're not all coming together out of one team. So if they get early tough draws, they can lose all their early games. Or if you just invert the draw round, so if you played, for example, all the hard teams at the start of the year, then you're basically going to struggle. Then you get other easier teams at the start of the year who are also improving. Maybe you can win 50% of those, right?
Yeah, right.
Whereas if you win easy teams at the start of the year, then you get the hard teams at the back end. There is a shot, for example, if the Force are really, really stable all through the season, that they could knock over at home a team like the Hurricanes or a team like the Blues, or a team like the Crusaders. That's what you'll find at the back end of these draws a lot of the time is that if teams basically have a choice, and that's the hard part is if things have gone awry, they'll start chopping and changing as the season goes, and their cohesion doesn't get any better, and they just stay terrible.
That's the law of diminishing returns again.
Yeah, or they keep the same team and they back end and they improve, and they actually end up winning games at the back end of the season.
Yeah,
they've got to get through that pain. So therefore, if they get an easy draw, right? So let's say, I've looked at. Let me have a good example here. The Hurricanes have in their draw round 1 Moana, round 2 Drua, round 3 Waratahs, round 4 Force, round the 5th game Highlanders. So that's all 5 week teams.
Right. Yeah, right. So that's 5 teams all below them. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so they can back end their way through that scenario perfectly. Okay, and they also actually interestingly have a really good number of they're also 10.5 in terms of those easy. But the only thing for them is that where are the Hurricanes? Is that the draw, including this other round with the Crusaders, where the games are all going to be in the same place.
Yes. Super round is back this year. Yeah.
So that takes away from teams a little bit because some teams that's a home team and that's theoretically a neutral game.
Yes.
So flip a coin, like they play the Brumbies in that game. Flip a coin is who wins that one.
Yeah.
Because and it's an interesting thing. We deal with it a lot in the NRL. Is like, is the Gold Coast Titans playing at Suncorp a home game for them when they play?
Yeah.
Or is that an away game? So
it's like Geelong playing at the MCG in the AFL. Yeah. So when you look at the draw like that, do your numbers tell you that there is a team that potentially could make a run this year who are outside those top 6 teams in terms of experience factor?
Because the gap is so big.
Right.
No.
Right. Okay. And that's interesting.
There are some teams who get, some good draws where they play other easy. You want to play other easy teams first, like I said with the Hurricanes.
Yeah.
This will give them a really good shot at making sure they make it. It's more within the context of those groups. So the Moana last year had a good draw, good setup, good opportunity, won some games. You know, the Rebels have had teams like at times where they've beaten the Crusaders, for example, early season. You're going to get these opportunities for them to bounce up. But at this point, I would say this top six is probably going to be the same.
Yeah.
Those top six should probably make the finals. But what's interesting is that some teams kind of sit above their station and then they kind of get found out in finals to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Most of the time. But then you also get the case where, you know, you might get a good run, you get into finals, and then the team you're playing, they lose both their centres to an injury that weekend, and you win that game away from home.
Yeah.
You get a home final, and you win it. So not every team, the best team doesn't win Super Rugby every year. The best team doesn't win any competition every year because you have finals.
Yes.
Right? And finals, you know, and I don't mean, I'm not casting any disparage on any individual particular team, but the opportunities that arise in every single different competition can give teams a chance to win it, even though they're probably not the best team in the comp.
Without being the best team, yeah.
Without being the best team in the comp.
So when you look at the draw, and obviously factoring in, you know, this sort of preseason analysis can't factor in future injuries. It can't factor in momentum. It can't factor in anything like that. So, but when you look at the draw, who are you expecting to come out on top, and which team potentially has the opportunity to push for a spot in the finals that you maybe that maybe no one is thinking that they will?
So the team that probably has the best numbers, not in terms of the cohesion stuff, but in terms of the opportunity to win because the way in which the draw is set up, is probably the Moana has an opportunity because of the way some of the games are played. So the Moana, and again, they've lost some cattle.
Yeah,
like it's an entirely different team, but they have
a completely different team without Artie Savea. We know that.
Yeah. So they have their last 6 games is Waratahs away, then Highlanders.
Yeah.
Right. And then you want to then go and have the good. You want to basically play the good teams against you. So so they got the Blues at home, right?
Yeah.
Difficult because it's probably going to be at Auckland anyway. I don't even know if it counts as a home game because they play North Harbour Stadium sometimes. They have the Hurricanes at home,
last year.
Hurricanes at home, then they have the Reds at home, then they have the Brumbies away. Well, if we follow that line of form, they stay stable through the comp, which is extremely hard for them to do, they could theoretically jag a couple of those games, right?
Yeah.
Whereas early season, they're just not going to do. They've had so much turnover, they're not going to jag those games early in the season. So that kind of might give them a chance to sort of bounce up towards the 5 or 6 games, and then you know, if some of the other teams who have hard draws start to panic, then they could start to fall away, and then you get
some key injuries.
So,
a couple of
injuries.
Right.
But so in terms of, you know, for us, Crusaders, Hurricanes, Chiefs are in a good position. I think the Brumbies should be fine, and I think the Reds are in a good scenario. But I would say it would probably be a New Zealand final.
Yeah, right. Okay.
It's probably pointing to a Crusaders Chiefs scenario again. Is this
preseason predictions are always rock solid? Ben, you know this. Is this the year?
Don't ever
rock solid. Rock solid. No problems at all.
No, it's not going. It's the chances of it happening are minor at best, but generally, all things being equal, which they never are, those teams are in good. And also, too, there's clients here I can't talk about. So
of course. Is this to wrap it up? Then is this the year? And I certainly expect it is. Is this the year Queensland finally take the mantle as the best team in Australia, based on preseason standings?
Yeah, I think it's just how quickly they get going.
Yeah.
So let's just have a look at their draw. So they have Waratahs round 1, which is a away from home. So that's a really good chance for the Waratahs to get a jump on them.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Then they have a bye. Then they have Highlanders at home, which should be pretty sweet. Then they have the Brumbies away, which will be hard. Then they have the Waratahs at home, which they grow an extra leg, in Queensland for. And they go draw a Hurricane. So I think as long as they can just work their way through that early stages. And then the other thing is going to be, and this is not any sort of casting any aspersions whatsoever on Les, is like it can be very distracting being the next national coach.
I just wrote that in my preview. And I think I said, try as he might, it is going to be awfully hard for Les Kiss to ignore the shiny new tracksuit sitting there in his wardrobe. I can remember talking to Michael Checker years ago, and
next to the North Sydney one from 1988 or something.
and I specifically asked Check, like, how hard is it for you to juggle, like, putting all your efforts into New South Wales, but knowing you have to do a little bit of forward planning for the Wallabies? And he said he knew that was going to be an issue, and so he very deliberately set up his office so that when he was working on Wallabies work, he actually had to turn around and work a different direction. So all his Wallaby stuff was in a different part of the desk, different shelf and all that. So he couldn't just go from one to the next. He actually had to literally change focus, and that was the way for him to compartmentalize his own situation. So it's interesting. It's going to be a factor. It will be a factor.
The other thing too that's really interesting is that it's not as though he's going to be handing it off to his successor during the season. He's going to be playing against his successor in round 11.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
In Canada. So that notion of, and like, I'm really interested as to why that's taken place, as to why God has decided to come to Australia.
Let's save that Pandora's box for later in the year, mate. But it has, as always, been a great chat. Thanks so much for delving into the numbers. Again, thanks so much for your counsel and support over the summer. It's been really interesting from my end to sort of develop this, and we'll absolutely have more conversations like this through the year, mate. So check it. Gainline Analytics is what you're looking for. Ben Darwin you'll find on the social media as well. Mate, thanks so much. It's been a great chat as always.
It's a pleasure. And maybe I could do some hacking and we could see if we can make this the #1 rugby podcast in the world, either in reality or in, getting some fake views or something like that.
If you've got a way that you can hack the YouTube algorithm, mate, then we will absolutely be having a chat off air.
I'll get someone onto it.
Great to have Ben Darwin help me kick off the Oz rugby scene on the 8-9 rugby for 2026. He's another one who'll definitely be back through the season, and I can't wait to keep the guest co-hosts coming every week. I love that chat. The idea of, we know that not all draws are even, but the whole idea of doing the numbers like he has just paints it out more than that. And the experience factor is an interesting one as well. It'll be interesting to see how the experience heavy squads at the start of pre-season actually play out over the course of Super Rugby in 2026. Elsewhere on 8-9 Rugby this week, Charlie Morgan joined me for this week for a proper preview chat about the Six Nations, which kicks off Thursday, Friday morning Australian time. So check it out. Head to 8-9 Rugby on YouTube and wherever you pod as well, and you will find that. And have you found 8-9 Rugby on Substack yet? Jeff Parks and I have been busy over the Australian summer building up a new outlet for rugby coverage down this way, and we hope that you'll join us and join in the discussion as well. We're adding a host of names that to bring unique insights and well-respected rugby opinions that you love. So find us on Substack and subscribe now to the exclusive home of Jeff's very widely regarded column, The Wrap, every Monday, plus plenty of more great writing for the rest of the rugby week. That, though, I think is the first episode of the Oz Rugby scene behind us. My sincere thanks to Ben Darwin once again. Tell us what you think by finding 8-9 Rugby on the socials. have your say on the 8-9 YouTube channel, and you can find me on the socials as well at BMC Sport. This is the Oz Rugby scene on 8-9 Rugby, and we will be back in your ears next week.